Have you ever had to let go of someone you deeply love? Join me as I tell you my toughest emotional challenge of letting go of someone I love. It was the hardest season of my life, but I think it was time to face it head on. Letting go of someone you love is like trying to breathe underwater. You feel like you're drowning, yet part of you still refuses to come up for air. For me, love had always been about holding on. Holding on to late-night laughter. Holding on to the promises whispered in the dark. Holding on to the dreams we built like a fragile castle, piece by piece. But what do you do when the very person you've built that castle with starts tearing down the walls one stone at a time? The situation was complicated. His name was Jeffrey. We had been inseparable at the start. He knew the silly songs I hummed when I was cooking. He knew how I liked my tea, with 2 spoons of milk and just a touch of sugar. He knew my weaknesses, and he cherished them. Or so I thought. Over time, his smiles grew rare, his words sharper, his presence colder. He would leave me waiting for hours with no explanation, and when I asked, he called me too sensitive. I tried to remind myself of the good days, but those days became fewer. Slowly, the love that once held us together started slipping through my fingers like sand. I told myself it was just a season. Every couple has ups and downs, right? I clung to old memories like lifelines. The night we danced under the rain when the streetlights flickered. The time he ran across the street, holding a bouquet of cheap roses just to surprise me. Those were the moments I replayed, convincing myself they could come back if I just waited. But deep down, I knew. I knew he had changed. I knew the warmth in his eyes had cooled. I knew the laughter had gone hollow. Still, I kept hoping. Hoping he would turn around and see me again. Hoping he would realize I was still there, waiting. Hope can be beautiful. But sometimes, hope becomes a prison. One night, everything shattered. I had cooked his favorite meal, jollof rice, grilled chicken, and fried plantain. I set the table with candles, hoping to spark a smile, maybe a moment of connection. He came home late, phone in hand, laughter spilling from his lips as he texted someone. He barely noticed the food. I asked softly, "Jeffrey, who are you always chatting with these days?" He froze. Then he chuckled bitterly. "You don't need to know everything, Betty. Not every question deserves an answer." His words cut deeper than knives. I forced a smile, but inside, something cracked. That night, when he fell asleep, I scrolled through his phone. The messages were there, her name glowing like fire on the screen. A woman I didn't know. Their words were filled with laughter, with plans, with intimacy. And that was when I realized, I was holding on to a ghost of love. Here's the hardest part. Even after discovering the betrayal, I couldn't walk away immediately. Why? Because the heart is foolish. Because love, even broken, still clings. Because I thought maybe, just maybe, he would choose me again. Days turned into weeks. I stopped going to the market because the whispers followed me everywhere. Women would point, children would giggle, and I became the subject of gossip. Betty, her man is no longer hers. They say he has another woman. Poor girl. Their words stung, not because they were lies, but because they were true. And yet, I still wanted to believe. I still wanted to fight for him. I would wake up at midnight and stare at him as he slept. I asked myself, is this the same man who once told me I was his world? I argued with myself. Maybe I'm overreacting. Maybe he still loves me, but he's just lost. Maybe if I become better, he will return to me. I started trying harder, dressing prettier, cooking more, silencing my questions. I thought I could win him back with patience. But love cannot be begged. Love cannot be bribed. And with every attempt, I lost a little more of myself. Then came another twist. A man named Ken entered my life. He was nothing like Jeffrey, gentle, patient, and kind. He saw me drowning in silence and reached out a hand. One evening, after a particularly bitter fight with Jeffrey, I found myself sitting in Ken's car, crying. He wiped my tears, his eyes full of something I had forgotten, respect. He whispered, "Betty, you deserve better. Why do you let yourself bleed for someone who doesn't care if you're alive?" His words shook me. For a moment, I wanted to lean into his arms, to escape my pain. But guilt held me back. I was still tied to Jeffrey, even though he had already let me go in every way that mattered. The moment of truth came unexpectedly. Jeffrey and I were sitting in silence one morning. He scrolled on his phone, ignoring me. I stared out the window, the world outside glowing with sunrise. And then it hit me, like a light bulb switching on. I realized I was begging for scraps of love from someone who had already left me emotionally. I realized my worth was not tied to his attention. I realized I deserved to be seen, to be loved, to be respected. That was the day I chose to let go. Letting go was not easy. It felt like tearing my skin apart. There were nights I cried until my pillow was soaked. Days I wandered the house like a ghost, missing his voice even though I hated his lies. I deleted his number, only to memorize it in my head. I blocked him on social media, only to find myself searching for his name. Letting go was like withdrawal from a drug. Every memory felt like poison. Every dream became a battlefield. But slowly, step by step, the chains began to break. It took months of silence, prayer, tears, and self-reflection. I started journaling, pouring my pain onto paper. I started exercising, reminding myself that my body was still mine. I started talking to friends again, rebuilding the laughter I had lost. And with time, I felt lighter. Stronger. Freer. I looked in the mirror one morning and realized I could smile again without faking it. Looking back, I see now that letting go was not the end, it was the beginning. I learned that love is not proven by how tightly you hold on, but by knowing when to release what's destroying you. I learned that self-love is not selfish, it's survival. I learned that heartbreak may scar you, but it can also shape you into someone stronger. And most of all, I learned that letting go doesn't mean you never loved, it means you loved yourself enough to walk away. My name is Betty, and I survived the pain of letting go of someone I loved. If you've been through something like this, I want you to know, you're not alone. Sometimes, the hardest goodbye is the one that sets you free. Share your story in the comments. I'll be reading every single one. Don't forget to subscribe to Love Tales by Mars Quad for more stories that will touch your heart and heal your soul.